How's it going, everybody? This is the Stimulus Check Hub here. And today I'm going to be talking about why I personally believe we are going to be seeing monthly stimulus checks. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but let me explain a little bit of my rationale behind why I believe that. And I believe that with every fiber of my being, and I'm going to put forth a very logical and coherent case as to why that is going to end up, that's what's going to happen. My first ever job 6 or 7 years ago was at Wendy's. I was earning about $8.50 an hour. It wasn't great, but I was living with my parents, so it was very easy to survive on that because I didn't really have to pay rent. I would say rent in my area at that time, 6 to 7 years ago, was about $900. So you're looking at about $900 a month, which today sounds like a godsend for a lot of people out there. I know, but this is 6 to 7 years ago. Now, that same job at Wendy's that I had is paying about $10.50, maybe $11. Think about that. Rent today in my area is probably $1,500, $1,600 a month, and that's not an exaggeration. Rent in those 6 years nearly doubled in my area. So while wages for average people are barely moving upward, they're starting to now for a different reason, and I'll explain that in a bit. Wages are stagnant relative to our productivity, relative to asset prices. Have you noticed that housing is going up by 20%? It went up 20% this year. So if you were looking at a $300,000 house to buy, that same house is probably around $360,000 right now. Did your wage go up $60,000? Did your wage go up even 10% in a single year? I don't think so. Mine didn't. No one else I know's did. So this entire system is reaching its logical conclusion, and that is where very few people own all the assets. Everyone else is left at the bottom. No one can afford a house anymore without these super duper artificially low interest rates. And that leads into the second point. All of this that you see around you, everything, the stock market, the real estate market, the crypto market, everything you see, all of these different markets are only where they're at because interest rates were kept artificially low. And the good news here, and this is the silver lining to this entire thing, is it's going to end soon. Either interest rates are going to go up and the stock market is going to absolutely crater. Real estate's going to crater. The crypto market's going to crater. Everything's going to crater when interest rates go up. Or, and this is where you get into the argument for some sort of universal basic income, and it's going to come, people. It's going to come because they don't want the system to collapse. They want asset prices to go up. These people want inflation. Look at the Federal Reserve. Look at the Treasury. They are literally telling you, we want costs to go up. They want it to be more expensive for you to live. And people act like these people are the good guys. They're making living more expensive so that asset prices can keep going up. That's the game here. That's the entire game. So if you're someone who has a house and a rental property, you're not doing that bad, assuming that rental property is rented out, because look at what you have. You have two assets that just went up 20% in value because of the Federal Reserve artificially keeping interest rates low. And then you can jack up your rent too. So some people with assets are doing pretty good, but if you don't have any assets, which most people don't because the system's fundamentally rigged, this system can't go on. But this article is really interesting. Adjusted for productivity, the minimum wage right now would be $24 an hour. Think about that for a second. The minimum wage used to follow the productivity of the United States. Basically, the whole theory is the more productive we become, the more goods we can produce relative to the amount of workers we have, the higher our wages are going to go. And if you think about that, that makes sense. That relationship went away around the 80s, the late 80s, I would say. And now the minimum wage no longer tracks reality. Now the minimum wage, it's not even $15 an hour, and Biden sadly got rid of that in his proposal, I believe. But the minimum wage adjusted for productivity right now would be $24 an hour if we followed what it was in the 1950s and 60s. Think about that for a second. The minimum wage right now would be $24 an hour. So that proves, this totally proves my entire theory that we have a group of people at the bottom, a group of people who don't have a lot of financial wiggle room. Like when I was working at Wendy's making $8.50 an hour, dude, that was not a lot of money. Like that is not enough to pay rent. It's not enough to eat. It's not enough to provide for yourself. Thank God I had my parents there. I thank God every day. But the point is, that system fundamentally cannot keep going on, right? You can't tell me that, all right, in 6 years, the Wendy's will be paying $15 an hour and rent will be $2,600 a month. I mean, that's literally the extent at which this trend is leading us to believe, but we know that's not going to happen. It's mathematically impossible. So structurally, this entire system is broken. Asset prices are way too high. People are not being paid enough relative to the productivity they're getting out, and this is backed up by the data. This guy did a great article on this. Backed up by the data, the actual productivity of our workers is equivalent to $24 an hour. And just adjusted for inflation, I think it's something like 17 or 18. That's what the minimum wage would be if you go back to the 40s. So realistically, the minimum wage should be $18 an hour. I'm just telling you that's what it was adjusted for inflation back then. You can look it up yourself. But the point is, this system is going to collapse, right? This system is going to end. And the only way that they can stop this massive bubble from popping is by implementing a UBI. And there's people who are smarter about finances than me, but they'll tell you this, that if interest rates go up, the stock market's going down. The Federal Reserve has total control of the stock market, total control of the housing market. Jerome Powell is the most powerful guy in the world. No one knows who he is. That's because we don't educate people about finances in this country because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that the entire thing is rigged. They don't want you to know that the stock market really fundamentally is rigged because these people are trading on insider information, basically. Oh, by the way, Congress, you know they can trade on insider information legally? Did you know that? In Congress, they can actually trade on insider information legally, and if you did that same thing, you'd be in jail. That's just a fun fact. I'm just throwing that out there. But the point is, this entire system is rigged. The only way they can keep it going is by pumping money into the economy. They want inflation. They've been struggling to create it. We're finally starting to get it because we're seeing prices go up rather dramatically. I don't know if you guys have been, shopping lately, but if you look at your food costs, those are way up. Lumber costs are up. Gas costs up. Everything's up. Used cars. Oh my God. Everything's more expensive now. So this entire system is starting to come apart at the seams here, because the bottom rung of society, who was put there essentially by the elites to basically work for nothing, work for pennies on the dollar while they collected all the wealth, is they're starting to demand higher wages. That's pushing up on supply. There's just not enough workers willing to work for $10 an hour anymore, thank God, right? Because the system's a scam. People are looking around saying, hey, my food just got more expensive. I need a raise to account for that. So that's really what's going on. People are asking for raises. And I know you'll see in the media, oh my God, people are asking for raises. People don't want to work. Yeah, they're not going to work for $10 an hour anymore. That time is gone. When you have rent at $2,000 a month in a lot of areas, the $10 an hour is no longer suitable. It needs to go up, and it is going up, and you're seeing that pressure, and that's going to continue. There's going to be a labor shortage in this country for a while, and that's going to put upward mobility on incomes. And I do believe a stimulus is the ultimate endgame here, unless they want to collapse the system like they did in 2008. There's no other way.